iHeart, get ready. Fantasy football is here. Welcome to the Scout Fantasy Show. ScoutFantasy.com is home to the Fantasy Football World Championships and the best players in the world. Real money winners giving their secrets to help you win. Now exclusively on iHeart. This is the Scout Fantasy Show with your host, the one, the only, Dr. Roto.
It's Dr. Roto. Get out the insurance cards. Get out the copay. The office is open, my friends. It's good to be back on this podcast with you guys. Looking forward to it. I want to talk a little playoff fantasy football. I want to discuss what that's all about. And of course, this week we will look at the games themselves and see the matchups and explore them and figure out who's got a better chance to move on. But today's podcast, I want to spend a good bulk of time talking about how to win a playoff fantasy football contest. So there are two different types of contests, actually three, I can think of it. I'm trying to think about one. So the first one is what I call one and done, right? One and done is where you get to use a guy one time and only one time, right? And I know that we do that on SiriusXM, the experts. We play a one and done league. So you've got to be very, very careful about who you're playing and when. But if you play a guy too early, well, what happens if you don't play a guy and his team loses, you don't get a chance to play him again. So, for example, this week, if I don't play Aaron Rodgers thinking that I'm going to use him later on, and the Giants win, I never was able to use Aaron Rodgers, right? So there's something to that. I've got to be very careful about when, I've got to be very judicious about when I use Aaron Rodgers. I'll tell you this, what I feel the best way to rule that team. And when I say one and done, it can be one and done at a position. And we'll get to the other ways where it's one and done by team. We'll get to that in a second. But when it's one and done by position. So if I can only use Aaron Rodgers once, don't I want to use him in the most important game? Don't I want to use him not against the Giants, but maybe next week when he has an easier matchup? Right, this week I know I don't want to use him. So what I want to do is do one of two things. Before I even start thinking about who I'm going to play in a playoff contest, I try to map out who I think is going to win. Who is going to win, right? Once I know that, I then ask myself who's going to win next week. I need to project out the playoffs the way I think it's going to go down. Am I always right? No, not at all, right? I may be very wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm probably going to lose. But if I'm right, and my projections hold true, then I'm going to win. My secret technique in this is to do it very simply. I will probably ask myself this question. Which one team do I think has the best chance of making it to the Super Bowl? I think the answer to that question is the New England Patriots. So what I'm going to try to do in the first couple rounds of this tournament, as long as I possibly can, I'm going to try to play NFC players, right? So, for example, this week, assuming I think that Seattle and Green Bay are going to win, I'm going to play as many Lions and Giants as I can, if I like them. If I don't, then I may incorporate some Seattle and Green Bay guys, right? And then next week, who am I going to play? I'm going to look at Atlanta and Dallas players as well as the two teams from this week. And then, right, in the championship week, I'm going to try to stick with the NFC as long as possible and then make my switch the last week to the AFC. Now, if Tom Brady loses, he loses. And if I lose out on, Kansas City against Pittsburgh, I do. But that's probably the strategy I take, to try to stay in it long enough to win it at the end. And hopefully if I have that one player, I win it at one team, I win it at the end. That's not easy to do, right? It's not an easy strategy, but it can pay off. it can certainly pay off. So once again, when I can use one player, one position and done, right? I'm going to probably go pick the one team who I think is the best chance to get to the Super Bowl, and then I'm going to go the opposite way for as long as I can and not play that team until the Super Bowl. Because when the Super Bowl hits, I'll have Brady, I'll have Deion Lewis, I'll have LeGarrette Blount, I'll have Edelman, I'll have Bennett, I'll have Hogan. I will load up on my Patriots. The Patriots do anything in the Super Bowl, I get points. Now, if the Patriots get to the Super Bowl and put up a clunker, I lose. I mean, that's it. I lose. But that's the strategy I'm going to go with. Next, so that's one. That's one and done. Now, here's another one. One player per team. This is what we use in the Beat Dr. Roto and Adam Ronis competition. You're allowed 11 spots out of 12 teams, and you have to pick only one player per team. One. So you better choose wisely. Once again, when you do this, what is the initial strategy that we do? Who's going to play the most games? The key number, the magic number is 3 for me. Because very, very, very rarely does a team play 4. I mean, out of the teams playing now, do I think that Oakland or Houston can get to the Super Bowl? No. Do I think Detroit and Seattle can get to the Super Bowl? No. Do I think Miami or Pittsburgh? Maybe Pittsburgh. Do I think that the Giants or Green Bay? Yes. The winner of that game could get to the Super Bowl, but I don't even know who's going to win that game. I have no idea who's going to win that game. I know who I want to win that game, but I don't know if they're going to win that game. But yes, Pittsburgh could run against Pittsburgh, could beat Miami, play Kansas City, play New England, and get to the Super Bowl. That is absolutely possible. So, but I think that's unrealistic. So 4 seems to be greedy. Well, let's call 4 greedy. So I'm going to look for 3 games, right? 3. If I can get 3, I'm going to be pretty happy. Can I get 3 from Seattle? Maybe. They beat Detroit? Sure. Can they go to Atlanta and win? Yes. Do I think they will? Probably not, but they could. And then all of a sudden they get to the championship game. I got 3 weeks from from Seattle, excuse me. Right? Same thing for Pittsburgh and same thing for the winner of the Giants, Green Bay. Right? So 3 is a magic number. Now, I can get 3 from the Patriots if they win the divisional and then they win the AFC championship game and then they get to the Super Bowl. I'm getting my 3 that way. Right? So I've got to be when I'm picking one player per team, I ask myself which teams can go 3. And then I try to put the best players in that position. So if I know one guy can go 1, right? Let's say I know that I think Houston loses. Let's just argue that. I may not even pick them. Right? So first thing I'm going to say is who's the surefire loser this week? I think it's Detroit. Because I don't even know who's going to win Oakland, Houston. One of those teams is going to win. Don't know who. But I don't think Detroit goes to Seattle and wins. I just don't see that happening. Not when they can't beat Green Bay at home. Right? You can't win a game at home and then you go out to Seattle. Good luck with that. So I'm probably going to have no shares of Detroit. No shares of Detroit. No players. And then what about Oakland, Houston? I'm going to try to find, in case the team loses, the position that's going to hurt me the least. So what position would that be? I don't know. Defense? I mean, how many points does a defense score in one of these formats? So I don't mess around with positions that don't score a lot of points. Right? My kicker, sure, I want a good kicker, but I mean, what, am I losing 3-6 points? I guess I'll do that. I can't lose my quarterback early. I can't lose my running backs early. I can't lose my receivers early. So this is that one and done format is very hard. But once again, it's all about picking correctly. You pick correctly, you win. Now, do you pick Brady or Ben or Ryan? Well, that's up to you. But I think you need to think yourself, who's getting to the Super Bowl? And I think you should be picking one of those 2 quarterbacks. Now, in a league like the Beat Dr. Roto League, and beat Adam Ronis, excuse me, where there's going to be probably 7, 8, 900 teams in there, you're going to have to be a little bit contrarian. You're going to have to be a little bit crazy. You can't just give me the same predictable lineup. Because if you do, everybody's going to have a similar predictable lineup. So maybe you might want to take a chance on a Matt Ryan. Maybe he will be a lower-owned quarterback than Ben or Rodgers or Brady. And you could still do very well. Matt Ryan only has to win 2 games to get into the Super Bowl, and then he gets his 3 games. And let me tell you, he's looked terrific. He's looked terrific. All right? Now, there's another type of draft, which is the normal fantasy football draft that we're used to, right? However many rounds that your league has, let's say it has, 12 rounds or 14 rounds. A lot of them have 14 rounds, right? Because you'd have 11 starters, and then you've got like 3 guys on reserve just on a bench in case somebody gets injured. Sometimes that happens in leagues. So once again, what are you doing? Depends how many guys are in a league. So let's just look at the Scout Playoff Fantasy Football Championship. 6 teams in a league. Let me give you the biggest hit ever. If the first 5 teams have a quarterback, don't take your quarterback until later. Right? If Rodgers and Ryan and Brady and Ben go, well then wait. Just wait. And load up on other positions and then take a shot on Russell Wilson or Eli Manning. Right? But you want to treat that like a draft. But once again, you want to pick players on great teams. Now, the key to winning these competitions is not only taking the guy who's going to go 3 games, but it's maximizing the guy who's going to play 1. So, for example, in Miami and Pittsburgh, who's the one guy on Miami, assuming you think Miami's going to lose, which I do, who is the one guy on Miami that I need to own? I would say there's 3 possibilities. Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, Jay Ajayi. One of those 3 guys will have a good game. And I need to have one of those 3 guys on my team. Because I can't always win with picking guys who play three games. Because that doesn't always happen. It doesn't always happen that way. But what I need to happen is that the guy who's playing the 1 game, I need to maximize it. And that's how I won the Beat the Dr. Roto competition. Guys who lost for me, and I did have guys who lost, but when they lost, they put up 20 points. I was getting 20 points from guys who were out. So if Beckham or Jordy Nelson, one of those 2 guys loses, I need one of them, if I have both in my lineup, both of them got to give me 20 points. And then I need one guy to continue on and one guy to have given me a good game. If I get that good game, I've got a chance. Right? So it's simple, but it's complex, which is what I think I like about playoff fantasy football. I like its simplicity, but I like its complexity as well. Because you really, in regular fantasy football, we're very, very, very rarely picking a team to win. I'm not going to say never. Everybody has got some crazy rules. Your team wins, you get 2 points. But very rarely do I care about the outcome of a game. Here, I absolutely care not only about the outcome, but performance. Performance plus outcome make it very challenging. And in some ways, I like it a lot. Now, I was on the phone with Adam Ronis yesterday and we were talking, and we're trying to get people to go to playscoutfantasy.com. So I encourage you, please go to playscoutfantasy.com, and there's 3 games there. 1 is the Beat Dr. Roto and Adam Ronis competition. It's free. Once again, you put 1 player per team, you set it, you forget it, you don't do anything else. It's easy. Costs you nothing, and if you win, you get a free month of Scout. If you beat our score, you get a free month of Scout. And if you win the whole thing, you get a prize valued at $299, a free entry into the online championship. Second, we've got this Maui Madness competition, right? Where basically your 2 best weeks count. 2 best weeks count. $25, winner goes to Maui for 6 nights. Family of 4 gets airfare too. And then finally, we have the Fantasy Playoff World Championship, right? Which is what I was talking about having the rounds and a real draft and doing it that way. But we were talking about the fact that people don't play fantasy as much during the playoffs. And I didn't really understand why, because we love fantasy during the season. We love it. I mean, how many millions of people play fantasy football? And then I think they get to the playoffs and they're like, I'm done. My team's not in there. I don't get it. First of all, I love football. Secondly, personally, I mean, I like the Houston Texans a little bit because I used to live in Texas. And, I have some good friends who are there, so I will root for them. But really, Oakland and Houston is going to be a very ugly game to watch. It's going to be a very ugly game to watch. But if I'm playing playoff fantasy football in any format, that game becomes interesting to me. I care whether Lamar Miller plays. I care whether Amari Cooper makes a catch. I care. So I don't know why we wouldn't want to play playoff fantasy football. So please, the prizes are great. We're trying to do everything we can to get you guys playing fantasy. I mean, to go to Maui for 6 nights and airfare for 4 for $25? Your wife is going to think you're a hero. Ronas and I are joking that we're going to quit Scout, play Maui Madness, and then see if we can get rehired after a nice week in Maui. I mean, how cool would that be? So, really, even to beat the Dr. Roto and Adam Ronas competition, try that one. If you've never played fantasy football, try it. Playoff fantasy football is great. When your team wins, when your players play well, it's a thrill. And it's a thrill that will last you through the Super Bowl. It will. It's great stuff. Because when Atlanta plays Seattle next week, and you're like, yeah, it's interesting, but now you've got Matt Ryan and you've got Jimmy Graham, it just became more interesting. And when Matt Ryan throws for 4 touchdown passes and Jimmy Graham catches for 2, it became even more interesting. Right? So, please, I beg you, check it out. All right, and of course, to go to scoutfantasy.com. You enter the promo code ROTO, that's ROTO. You pay for 1 month, we get you 2 more for free. Baseball season is coming very close. The articles, I'm going to my first draft in the FSTA in mid-January, so the articles will be starting after that point. We're excited at Scout. NBA is booming. We have our optimizer for NBA. We've got Mr. Pucks writing hockey articles, and Y2 Casey writing MMA articles, and PGA DFS. It's really, really exploding at Scout Fantasy, so please check it out. All right, I will be back tomorrow, and when I get back tomorrow, I will be breaking down the games, talking about the playoff matchups, who's going to win, who's going to play well, and that's about it. So I wish you guys a great day. So it's time to put away the insurance cards, put away the copay. The office is closed, my friends. So like I said, I wish you a great day. Enjoy. We're back tomorrow. Be well. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Scout Fantasy Show. There's never been a better time to join the Scout Army. Visit scoutfantasy.com. Use the promo ROTO for 2 months free. And don't forget, fantasy players, please thumbs up the podcast on the iHeart app. See you next time. Go Scouts!